If you think you're past getting bullied because you're an adult, keep your ass still for just 1 minute. Not just because it helps this video get pushed out to the algorithm with more watch time, but because you probably need this more than some pimple-faced teenager getting jacked for his lunch money every day. Also, it's been over 2 decades since I've been in high school. And I know things have changed, but also if you're a girl who stumbled upon this video looking for ways to deal with emotional bullies, I've got something for you too in this video, so sit still as well. Everyone immediately thinks of a physical fight when dealing with bullies, and it's true, most, but not all bullying is heavy-handed physical intimidation. But even if it's just someone teasing you to the point of tears, the ideas are still the same behind it and the solutions are similar. Now I'm going to give you a primer on this real quick. If you want to learn how to deal with bullies, you won't find a better place to do so than in the hood. And boy, growing up in the hood did I have to deal with a lot of them. I was a poor kid, even by the standards of the projects. I didn't have any family around, I wasn't a cool kid, and despite eventually having a stellar career in both amateur and professional boxing, I was not even remotely athletic. And on top of that, I was ugly. Kids used to call me Congo after that movie based on a book by Michael Crichton. I did more than my fair share of fighting, not just because of the teasing, but because of other stuff like kids throwing my coat in the toilet in the middle of the freezing cold Pittsburgh winter. I grew up in a poor and dangerous part of town. If you haven't been there before, you know an area like this is the ghetto, but I'm partial to calling it the projects or the hood. But hell by any other name is still hell. The violence in the public housing projects is legendary. In fact, over the past 2 decades in the United States, violent crime has fallen in all areas except low-income public housing. There it continues to rise. And given that my experiences in an urban war zone are where I'm drawing the inspiration for my advice on dealing with bullies, you probably think I'm going to just tell you to swing first or clap them with the burner. While sometimes you might have to get in some gangsta-ish, the answer isn't always just to knock a bully out and stomp him up so badly that he never even looks at you funny again. Sometimes you gotta get down like that, though where I grew up, that response would probably take a routine fist fight and have it escalate to gunplay on sight. So even if someone steps to you first, you can't just embarrass the dude. The truth is that a lot of times you can stop a bully from ever bullying you in the first place by carrying yourself a certain way. You can also, believe it or not, handle things with words in such a way that not only does it never get physical, but you earn respect and stop the harassment at the same time. I'm not telling you to always be passive and turn the other cheek, but the easiest fights to win are the ones you never need to get into in the first place, and this goes for emotional bullying as well. You know, that type of bullying that civilized taxpayers engage in at the office or women do to each other because only the thuggiest the chicks are out there knocking each other out. But before we go any further, let's define what bullying is so we're on the same page going forward. Bullying is repetitive and aggressive behavior that deliberately intends to hurt, intimidate, exclude, or humiliate another person physically or emotionally. The 3 components of bullying are, first, a power imbalance where an actual or perceived unequal power distribution exists between the bully and the target would have difficulty defending themselves. Once I had to bite my tongue so hard I could taste blood at 2 instances of bullying I witnessed in the Army between the officers and the enlisted soldiers. I have a heart, but discretion is the better part of valor, and I didn't want to get a court-martial or anything like that. The second condition is the intent to cause harm. The bully's actions are intended to physically, emotionally, and or socially hurt the target. They go beyond teasing or horseplay. Now everyone joking around is cool, and even everyone trying to take each other's heads off is cool. But what's not cool is when one person thinks it's a joke and the other person is out for blood. And the final condition of bullying is repetition. The incidents are not isolated. A bully doesn't just pick a fight one time and that's it. They keep at it incessantly. These conditions aren't limited to physical confrontations. There's the emotional, physical, and social bullying as well. Because of how we're wired into the internet, social media, and smartphones, everyone is these days, the latter is now more commonly described as the cyberbullying. Now, I won't be addressing cyberbullying in this video, but it's not because I'm one of those guys who doesn't think it's real. Cyberbullying has caused kids to end themselves. That's real enough for me. I'm not discussing cyberbullying for 2 reasons. First, parents have a responsibility to protect their children from the internet. I was a tutor for high schoolers for 4 years. I've seen restrictions put up in multiple households at all age levels, so I know it's possible to protect developing minds from the uglier side of the internet and still keep them up to date with technology. Secondly, if you're an adult, you understand how to use blocking functions on all social media platforms. If that's still not enough, spend less time on the internet anyway. It's good for you. For everyone else, let's explore how bullies think and how to deal with them. This isn't just for kids in school. In fact, I'd say kids today are more protected now than they were in my day. It is for everyone else who deals with some type of bullying in their personal and professional lives. The best remedy for any problem is prevention, and bullying is no different. Bullies of all types select the weakest members of a group to single out for their attacks. In the same way that hyenas target the weakest and most vulnerable animals to feast on, bullies go after people who are the most socially isolated, mentally fragile, and physically weak. Whether it's physical or emotional harassment, bullies are just looking for an easy target. They don't actually want to fight, so they avoid anyone who looks like they might be capable of mounting a decent defense. So our first step is to not look weak. The late comedian Patrice O'Neal tells a story about his time in jail, where an inmate told him that he looked really good one day. Patrice didn't like it, but he just ignored him. It seemed like an innocent compliment, but an older inmate warned him that he's got to put the fear of God into him the next time he talks to him like that, and that he had to do it in front of the other inmates for two reasons. First, that inmate stepping to him like that was a test. While a compliment seems innocent, in jail, complimenting a man like that is a problem. It would be awkward on the outside, but you could just ignore it and keep up with your day. However, on the inside, you've got to respond to it. If you aren't gay, but not willing to check a guy filling you out to see if you are, then you invite more aggressive overtures. If the guy got away with a small compliment, next time he's going to grab your butt, and then before you know it, he's going to be trying to turn you into his girlfriend. I know guys say it wouldn't happen to them, but I already talked about how almost half of these dudes are lying in my video about the 3 worst things that a man can do to ruin his life. I dropped a link in the description, so you should definitely check that one out. This leads to the second reason he's got to check the inmate. The other inmates are watching him to see how soft he is. If they know he wouldn't stand up for himself, then he gets marked as an easy target for all types of harassment. Checking the behavior is about sending a message to the perpetrator or anyone in the vicinity looking for someone to victimize that you are not the one to try. It's easy to say that this is just prison behavior, but we've got some compelling research that once a person has been marked as weak by the social group, they're more likely to be victimized by others in the group. Link in the description to that research. The lesson here is that you have to immediately address when someone treats you in a diminishing or disrespectful manner. Otherwise, the disrespectful behavior will gain momentum and escalate. Not only that, but it will also behave like a virus, infecting the minds of others around you who don't have a strong enough value system to resist the allure of groupthink and mob mentality. Because here's a dirty secret about people. Most of them don't know what to think, and they're waiting for someone else to tell them. This unpopular truth underpins everything from politics to religion to street gangs and even marketing advertisements. It definitely applies to how we treat other people as well. You have to take matters into your own hands and make it clear as soon as possible that you are not the one to try. Prevention of this behavior is half the battle. Speaking of taking matters into your own hands, now is a perfect time to remind you to hit the subscribe button. I figure if you're still watching at this point, then you're getting value and you not only dig my past content, but my future stuff as well. Now, if it's too late and you're already dealing with someone bullying you, then more drastic measures are required to remedy the situation. At that point, you are marked and are living on tortured time. So let's address the most obvious case first. Physical bullying is the easiest to deal with. I learned earlier on that fighting was just going to be a way of life, and it wasn't one I could run away from. I couldn't even go to any adult figures because not only were they all messed up, even if they did something, that would just invite retaliation. There was always someone looking for a fight. Running wasn't an option because housing projects are constructed like prisons, many being walled or gated, and everyone knows where you live, and choosing to fight wasn't much better. If I won the fight, they'd return later with a group. If I lost the fight, I'd be tormented and challenged again because losing a fight displays weakness. It was a choice between the lesser of two evils. This was effectively the prison environment that Patrice O'Neal was in, and similar rules applied. Another comedian, I guess I should say, Chris Rock, once hilariously remarked that life's catching up to jail. If you're from an old project, a new jail ain't that bad. And this is true. When I was younger, I thought I had a sign on my back for fights. In retrospect, I only fought more than slightly above average. Slightly above average in this case means about once a week. But from those fights, I learned valuable lessons that have served me well now that I'm a part of civilized society. Once I realized that a person intended to hurt me, I threw the first punch and committed to extreme violence. I didn't go overboard, but I intended to come out of the fight clearly as the victor. Breaking even wasn't an option. This approach accomplished something very important that made my life a little easier. Whenever a person decided I was going to be a target, they knew that the encounter would get violent. They had to decide if it was worth it. Even if I lost, I made sure it wasn't worth it. The conventional advice for dealing with bullies is to stand up to them and show you that you're willing to fight. But what most parents are too politically correct to teach their kids is that until you exchange blows, all you've shown is that you're too lazy to run. Whether you win or lose, standing up to a bully only counts if you get into a fight. The message you send in that case is loud and clear. Even if you kick my ass, you're going to suffer, so you better make sure it's worth it. As a corollary to this, never let someone get aggressively within arm's length of you. Never let yourself get surrounded and initiate a fight if that happens. In the worst case, you'll be brought up for punishment or charges. But most states consider that intrusion of personal space a case for self-defense. Now, I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice, so make sure you know the laws where you live and prepare accordingly. Either way, better that you be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Now, if you don't have what it takes to stand up for yourself, I have a free guide to help you. The Fighter's Mindset teaches 20 lessons I learned from boxing and growing up in the hood that will help you face your fears, stand up to others, and see the world for what it really is. Most of you are too naive and you think you're never going to have to fight because everyone is so civilized. But like we see in boxing, the only thing square in this game is the ring. The God won't teach you how to fight. No God can do that, but it will make sure that you don't have to fight as much. The link to the free ebook is in the pinned comment. With the shameless plug out of the way, let's deal with bullying in the civilized world, emotional and psychological. Now, non-physical bullying is the most difficult type to deal with. The effects aren't obvious and most people will tell you to just ignore it. However, the hallmark of non-physical bullying, the feature that sets it apart from other types of harassment, is that it is prohibitively difficult to escape from. Now, running away really isn't an option if it's a place you work or the bullying is from a family member that you live with or have to interact with. Even if you can run away, the internet has become the weapon of choice for this type of harassment, and most of you can't avoid it even if you want to. The other problem is that many bullies of this type are smart enough to either leave no evidence of the harassment or they leave enough space in their aggression to have plausible deniability. This is how passive aggression works, and it's a common tactic used by emotional bullies. I hate passive aggressive behavior. I spent a lot of my 20s hanging around hipsters who like craft beer, Culture Vulture, the Wu-Tang Clan, and had a weird combination of typically masculine features like a beard and tattoos, but had voices softened on a wet napkin and were allergic to physical activity. The preferred weapon of choice for these dirty hipsters was passive aggression. Passive aggressive behavior attempts to get the benefits of confrontation without taking the risk. This is a subtle, insidious form of bullying. Passive-aggressive behavior is anything critical and negative, but not directly expressed. The passive-aggressive entity puts the burden of interpretation on the message's recipient rather than clearly stating the beef. This is done to initiate a confrontation while maintaining plausible deniability. The hope is that they can say what they want, but if you react harshly, they can protect themselves from a direct conflict by blaming your reaction on misinterpretation. It's like when someone keeps provoking you, you finally snap and they go, "Chill out, dude, I was just joking." No, the hell you weren't. Or at the very least, now I'm not joking and we got a problem, right? The hallmarks of passive aggression are using backhanded compliments, sarcasm, diminishing language, or pretending they're joking while actually criticizing you. These tactics avoid direct confrontation, but still delivers criticism through the subtly snide comments. For example, "must be nice" is often said by people who are jealous of your accomplishments and can't bring themselves to congratulate you, but want to maintain a thin veneer of sensibility. Another common display of passive-aggressive behavior is "if you say so" during a discussion. Rather than speaking clearly on what they disagree with, this remark is said to push you to respond by diminishing your perspective and opinions. Now, the good news about passive aggression is that it's easy to ignore. If someone in a leadership or power position relative to you uses it, force them to clarify what they mean. Also, fortunately for us, the type of person who has learned to rely on sarcasm and passive aggression as a bullying tactic is usually passive and rarely aggressive. They tend to fold and fall in line with a little bit of pressure. A big challenge is that to win against this type of emotional bully, you have to wage a war on two fronts. First, you can't acknowledge their attacks. Now, this tactic doesn't work for physical bullies because you can't ignore someone punching you in the face. However, for a person trying to demean you, it's important that you never react emotionally because the bully lives for this reaction. Your stoic reaction, however, starves their antics for the oxygen required to keep them going. And when I say ignore, you really have to ignore them. Often pretending they aren't there or what they said didn't register will take a lot of steam out of them. However, we're only human and will eventually have to respond, and how you do it is key. The response should be direct, immediate, and free of emotion. If it's one person doing the bullying, confront that person publicly. If it's a group, laser in on one person and force the person to do what you're directly ignoring everyone else. No matter the environment, the overall strategy is the same. Isolate and publicly confront your tormentor and do so in the most non-reactive way possible. It doesn't always work out, but that's why I explained in this video why you have to learn how to fight, and the biggest reason has nothing to do with fighting. See you next time, and as always, the rest is up to you.